Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Welcome to the Joe Chaffee Weather Show on this Monday, the 10th of June, 2019. And before we get into the main weather tonight, I just want to talk about this helicopter crash that occurred in Manhattan this afternoon at about 2 o'clock. And, of course, they're going to, part of the process of investigations, they are going to look at the weather conditions at the time and just to a brief summary of what was happening. And I went back and looked at some of the observations that were going on between 1 and 3 p.m. at LaGuardia Airport. The chopper crashed on the top of a building in Midtown Manhattan shortly after 2 o'clock. One of the things that was going on between 1 and 3 was a band of downpours, and those downpours moved northeastward from New Jersey and into Manhattan, and then now they've moved up further to the north. One of the things that I noticed on my drive-in, which I thought was very unusual, there were areas on my drive-in where I do have some visibility in terms of distance. I did notice that as the atmosphere kind of saturated up this morning, when I left the house, you could almost smell the rain in the air that was coming. But I noticed on my drive, particularly as I drove into western Long Island, that you could literally see the wall of rain that was coming in from the west, which I've seen that happen before, but I was able to see it from quite a distance, as sort of a wall where the visibility got down to maybe a quarter of a mile or so, or perhaps even less. There was almost like a yellowish look to the sky. I'm not quite sure exactly what was going on. My first impression was that maybe the sun had broken through the clouds, but as I got closer, I realized that it was a wall of rain. The bottom line is that when looked at the weather observations between 1 and 3 o'clock, the ceiling dropped to 500 feet, which is extremely low and certainly hugely problematic for pilots. Also, we had the wind. There was actually a bit of a gusty wind coming in from the east-northeast. And if you look to see where Manhattan is set up geographically, an east-northeast wind is wide open. It comes across the western part of Long Island Sound and goes right into Manhattan. It really there aren't any obstacles to sort of deflect the wind. It's sometimes if you walk into Manhattan, if you're on a windy day with a west wind, you got the buildings that kind of help you from street corner to street corner until you get into these wind tunnels. But oftentimes the east-northeast wind can get rather strong and gusty. I mean, there were some wind gusts up to 20, 25 miles an hour or so, maybe even a bit higher than that when you take into account the elevation. So between the ceiling, the gusty winds, the heavy rain that was falling at the time, and the visibility went from about 2 miles at 1 o'clock to less than half a mile between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. So you had a lot of things, at least from the standpoint of weather, that might have been part of this, part of the issues with regards to what happened with the chopper. Now, we have to just kind of have to wait for all the details to come in. I'm just sort of giving you what the weather scenario was at the time, and we'll know in the coming days as they get more information on it, exactly what caused this to happen. In the meantime, here's something that we haven't seen in a while, and this was from the daily the Storm Prediction Center's map on their homepage. No organized severe thunderstorms forecast. This is after 56 consecutive days of having organized severe weather somewhere in the U.S. That's 8 weeks without interruption. And if you think about it, that pretty much covers that's almost 2 months straight, where every single day there was at least one severe thunderstorm watch or a tornado watch. The break finally happening. Yes, there are downpours. Yes, there are thunderstorms today. but it is all general thunderstorm activity and nothing severe. One of the things I did notice with respect to the pattern going forward is there is a bit of a relaxation with the from the standpoint of severe weather, particularly because of the fact that we don't have any really deep troughs extending wells to the south like we did through much of the month of May that triggered off those widespread severe weather events. I also think I did post the tornado count for the season so far is something on the, I believe it was 1,048 or 88. Hang on. I wish my memory was as good as it was even a few years ago. But give me 1 second, folks. I did post it. You Patreon folks had it because I did a post for you guys this afternoon. So I'm just trying to bring up that particular page. And as I put, there were 935 reports of tornadoes through the month of May, and I just did some quick math. The unofficial number through yesterday was 1,088. So there have been 143 tornadoes during the month of June. When you look at that number of 1088, the average per year is about 1,200. So you figure there'll be room for at least another 120 tornadoes between now and the end of the year. We're going to take that number out. Now, whether we go up to anything resembling a record I think we've got a long way to go with respect to getting there. But so far, it certainly has been a very busy season from the standpoint of severe weather. Now, going forward over the next 7 days, the WPC's rainfall forecast. You have to excuse me, I'm just having a little bit of trouble today with speaking. There's a lot of dust where I'm sitting. There's an unusual amount of dust. Whenever I'm doing a broadcast, when I can taste the dust on my lip, on my tongue, I know there's a problem. So hopefully I can last for a while. But here's the 7-day rainfall forecast from WPC. And what we're seeing here is an improvement from what with some of the maps that we were looking at last week. Again, maybe there's a bit of a relaxation going on if it is from the standpoint of severe weather, but also from the standpoint of extreme rainfall. The southeast getting a bit of a break. The heaviest rains confined to the immediate coast of several inches over the next 7 days. Also in parts of southwest Florida in a band of heavier rains. The Gulf Coast getting something of a break from Georgia west to Texas, seeing amounts of under an inch, and in some cases under a quarter of an inch, and in some cases no rain at all, which is a bit of a surprise. Still seeing some rain being indicated from northeastern Oklahoma through the middle Mississippi and Ohio Valley and through at least the interior area of the Northeast, where we see a general band of about 2 to 3 inches. The west of the Rockies, it looks very quiet. Some pockets, yes, but all that precip is very, very light. Even in the lightest green, you're talking about 1/10 of an inch of rain or less. So I know, Johnny Quest, you mentioned in the pre-chat, you were asking about the fact that does it seem like as if there's more flooding going on this year than in past years. You know, my sense of that, without look, sometimes it does. Your memory just brings to you what's front and center. So you start to lose a little bit of perspective, or if you're at my age, you really just forget altogether. But my sense is that it's probably just, to me, it feels like last year was wetter. And I think that's because of the fact that we also had to deal with the tropical systems that we had to deal with, particularly Florence, and all the rain that went through the Carolinas. Now, of course, that won't be a year for that until we get into September. But still, it is. There is a sense that at least this spring has been unusually wet. I don't know if you look at the whole year whether we've seen more flooding this year than we have last year. I also seem to recall that we kind of went on this streak with you more around the middle part of last year that extended right through the end of the year and into the winter months to a certain extent. I don't know whether you're going to see the same thing happen this time around. Numbers seem to be running above average, but there are places too down in the southeast in Florida and in North Florida that are actually we're seeing below average rainfall amounts since January 1st. And of course, some of that was made up with the rainfalls that they've seen from the last 7 days or so. Finally getting everything in the atmosphere moving, which is a good thing. And here we have the weather system after what was a great weekend here in my neck of the woods, eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. In fact, the dry air kind of pushed its way down even into into Maryland and into Delaware. Even though we were fighting high clouds from time to time, yesterday was just an absolutely spectacular day. But everything was going to get moving once the ridge of high pressure moved out, which it has long since done. And now, of course, you've got this trough swinging across the Great Lakes with the trailing cold front. And this really has become a warm front, cold front combination. With the warm front pushing northward, you're getting the downpours ahead of that. And then you're getting some warm sector downpours and thunderstorms, nothing severe, but some that are going to produce some heavy rains overnight into first thing tomorrow morning. And that front is going to push off. We also have some energy coming in to the well up through the northern Rockies into western Canada. You've got some tropical moisture in Mexico streaming into Texas. So we're beginning to set up also the next weather system that's going to be for Thursday for the east, another warm front, cold front scenario. And actually, I'll just give you a heads up. I was looking at this from the standpoint of the next weather event. I think there might be a small area that gets hit hard with some rain during Thursday morning. So I just want to kind of put that out there. Looks like on that warm front there might be some kind of surface wave that will develop, and there's a fairly decent upper air trough with this as it swings around. So if it winds up that we see an area get a sizable amount of rain out of it, I'm not going to be too shocked. But there's certainly more time to speculate about this over the next couple of days. Here's what the northeast radar looks like shortly before 7 o'clock Eastern time. And the band that went through at the time that the chopper went down in Manhattan is now over eastern Long Island, through western Connecticut and on up the Hudson Valley and into northern New York. Then you've got a break, and you've got this second cluster now that is moving into northern New Jersey. It's right along Route 195 and coming out of southeastern Pennsylvania. Of course, there's a Yankee-Met game going on, and I'm thinking that some of that rain could get in there in the next couple of hours. Further to the west, where your cold front is, you've got a rather wide band of downpours and embedded thunderstorms from western New York, western Pennsylvania, down into West Virginia. That's about 8 or 9 hours away. So I'm thinking at 7:16. So you're talking sometime between, say, 2 or 3 a.m. till about 6 or 7 a.m. that those downpours and possible thunderstorms will be moving through the coastal area. So we still have that to get through before weather conditions genuinely improve. And here's a look at the Upton radar of what is happening right now as of 7:17 p.m. Eastern time. That first lead band over eastern Long Island. You've got the second area now just to the southwest, just getting ready to move over New York City. So I'm thinking you're going to get into some of that rain at Yankee Stadium for the Yankee-Met game. For those of you who are not from this area, that's a big deal. It's a Subway Series, Yankees, American League, Mets, National League, crosstown rivals, I guess we can call them. I went to the Fort Dix radar from the perspective of Mount Holly, and looking further west, you could see some downpours in eastern Pennsylvania and some heavier downpours south and west of Philadelphia down into northern Delaware near Wilmington, and that area is also sliding to the northeast. Some rain in southern Delaware and off the coast, just touching Cape May, sliding out to the northeast, and we'll go further west. And let me just punch up. We'll go to State College, Pennsylvania, so we can get a view of that area for later tonight. Those are some heavy downpours and embedded thunderstorms near Du Bois and now just exiting Pittsburgh. We used to use the old Pittsburgh rule. If something was moving on an average of about 35 miles an hour, we had the 8-hour rule. So again, it's coming to an end at Pittsburgh, but this looks like it might be moving a bit, maybe slightly slower than 35 miles an hour or so, 40 miles an hour. So again, I'm thinking arrival time for New Jersey to southern New England, 2 or 3 a.m., and then exiting sometime between, say, 5 a.m. in the western side of that zone till about 8 a.m. on the eastern side. So for those of you who are in Philadelphia, for example, I think your morning commute, if you start your morning commute before 6 a.m., you probably will be just at the point where everything's already had just ended. If you're east of there and over toward New York City and points east, you could wind up seeing downpours and thunderstorms through at least half of your morning commute. Here's the surface map right now, and there's your cold front to the west as of 21Z. And you've got this warm front, and that warm front is trying to push northward. Dew points into the low 70s, even some middle 70 dew points across Virginia and into Delaware. And down into North Carolina, where we have temperatures in the 80s, but you go on the other side of that and you're looking at dew points that are in the 60s, middle and upper 60s in some places, but I can also see a few dew points down in the lower 60s. So that warm front is at least defined enough that it's helping to produce some of these overrunning bands of precip. And then, of course, you've got the cold front generating what it is doing with downpours. And then to the west of that, we've got a big high in Kansas. This is a nice change for these folks who have been just absolutely hammered with severe weather over a long course of time. You've got dew points in the 50s, temperatures in the 80s, low 80s in North Texas. You go down near the Texas coast, and you've got temperatures in the upper 80s and low 90s. Now here, this front has actually pushed pretty far to the south. It's almost to New Orleans, and analyzed to be actually south and east of Houston. We're at the time of year now where these weather fronts just usually don't make it this far south. So it's a little odd to see the front where it is, as far down as it is into the Gulf of Mexico. The surface OBS, and by the way, you can get this particular tool. I really like this National Weather Service tool that it's on Mount Holly's homepage. So if you go to weather.gov/PHI, that will, right on their homepage, you can click on this and set up this tool any way you want. I have temperatures, dew point, and wind, and if you hover your mouse right over the location, it'll tell you the OB here. Belmar, Farmingdale, for example, 69 dew point, 69 dew point, humidity of 100%. The radar echoes, I've also overlaid those. The blue areas, just a note of caution, a lot of times the areas that are showing up in that dark blue, the precip that I've seen, the precip isn't reaching the ground in those areas. But you have to kind of look at the OBS to match it up. I'm not sure exactly, it might just be where it's picking up a little bit too much. I would focus on the lighter blues, and certainly you get into the greens and yellows. You're talking about some heavier downpours that are in there. All of this now into eastern Pennsylvania and moving northeastward. We have this other area, as we talked about, down in Delaware. You have temperatures actually in Maryland that are in the 60s, and same in southern Pennsylvania. temperatures in the mid and upper 60s, and then you start to see those temperatures in the 70s further to the east and south. So that warm front definitely is there. And going up further to the north, just take you up. I'm going to just widen this a little bit, make it a little easier for me to move. But here's how it looks through upstate New York, where you are seeing rain pretty far up there. There also, I'm noticing a couple of obs that might be errors, like that 8577. That's got to be wrong. It's probably 6577, and you've got upper 50s as you go further north from there. And then out to the west, we wait for all this lovely dry air that's going to be coming in for Tuesday and Wednesday for the Northeast and into the mid-Atlantic states, with temperatures here in the low and mid-70s and even some 60s, and dew points down in the 40s and 30s. Can we hardly wait for that? That is on the way, and that's a good thing. Okay, so let's take a look at what the upper pattern is going to be doing as we go through the week. And of course, this weekend is Father's Day weekend. Father's Day gets a whole, Father's dads get a whole weekend. Just so that we're clear. So here's what we went through our issue this weekend. That ridge, that finger that poked out of the Atlantic and into New York State and Pennsylvania. The upper low to the west weakened. The trough and shortwave that are moving through now. And notice as one trough lifts up, another shortwave trough drops down into the northern plains, while a ridge is popping up in the west. This is the system for late Wednesday night, Thursday into Thursday night, the next cold front that'll be moving through. And this is a pretty decent looking upper low. I mean, this actually has some depth to it as it swings around late Thursday and Thursday night. So this is why I'm thinking that at least with the initial warm front and the wave that might develop on it with this wrapped up upper low, that we could wind up seeing an area of heavy rain develop out of this. It'll be fast. It'll be about 6 hours worth, moving up the coast perhaps. We'll have to just wait to see how models line this up, but I could certainly see the possibility of that happening. Then a cold front with perhaps some thunderstorms with that sometime Thursday evening, followed by another dry air mass for Friday and Saturday. The only thing that happens this time around is that there seems to be a little bit more room in between the shortwave lifting out and the next trough dropping in into the plains, which is not nearly as deep as what the models are indicating for Thursday. So I think this will actually allows not only for weather to be nice for Friday and Saturday, but I think we're going to see temperatures warm up considerably on Sunday. Father's Day could be a very warm to borderline hot, humid day for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England until we get a cold front to come through for early next week. And that front may get hung up because now we're seeing another shortwave getting involved. So we've definitely seen a change in an adjustment in the weather pattern in with the upper air trough in the east for the time being. And I think as we go through the long haul, especially as we head toward the end of the month, I think at some point we're going to get rid of that and maybe go to more of a ridge position here in the east toward month's end. And that might bring in some hot weather, something that lasts more than a day or two. But open speculation on my part. We'll see if that winds up actually happening. All right, so let's look at the actually I want to look at the NAM. Okay. So here's the NAM tonight. And of course, you've got this, that warm frontal band, and here comes the band of rain for tomorrow morning. We were at 8 a.m. So again, the bulk of it is already east of New York City. There's still a little bit left on Long Island and through Connecticut and on up into Vermont and New Hampshire. But that nice high builds in for Tuesday and for Wednesday. I'm not expecting any issues. The high moves off the New Jersey coast, much like what the last one did on Sunday. So we're going to get this east-southeast flow. You can see the isobars just going in that direction. And they start to get pinched off here. And this is where there's some kind of wave on this warm front that the at least the NAM picks up on. It's kind of sliding it just offshore, but I could see this could also still be more tucked in. You're also getting the low and cold front swinging through the lakes with the upper trough there, and that comes through late in the afternoon and evening. Maybe the NAM is not quite as developed here as I think it may wind up being. We'll know about that as we get closer, but I'm going to lean to a bit more bullish outcome here with regards to rainfall for overnight, let's say the early morning hours on Thursday, and then late in the day Thursday evening with the cold front. Notice that this area, this is the front that comes through late tonight that's going to stall. The bottom part of that front's going to stall off the southeast coast and back to the northeast Gulf. So if it's from here that you're going to get this wave to come up, it goes out, the cold front moves through, and then here we go. The next high is already down in Tennessee. So that is already telling you that we're setting up for, after a shot of slightly cooler and drier air coming in on Friday, we're going to quickly go to a west wind or a west-southwest wind for Saturday and for Sunday, Father's Day. The key to Father's Day, there will be a front approaching. I'm thinking it's going to hold off until Sunday night. So much of the day will be very warm to perhaps borderline hot. We might see 90-degree temperatures get close to New York City. Wouldn't shock me at all in a setup like this. And then thunderstorms that hopefully hold off until Sunday evening so that the bulk of the daytime will be okay. As I didn't check today, so let me come back to you guys for this, and I'll check off screen because this way we'll if there's nothing going on, there's no sense to spend a whole lot of time on it. The tropics have been very quiet, and I'm just looking at NHC's forecast here. No cyclone development for the next 5 days on the Atlantic side, and no cyclone development in the next 5 days on the Pacific side. I'm actually a little bit surprised that the East Pacific hasn't at least generated its one storm through the first 10 days of June. But I mean, given the fact that we have this weak El Nino, and you would think you certainly are going to expect activity in the East Pacific to pick up at some point, but it has been relatively quiet. For whatever reason, I'm not. I don't want to put too much stock into the reasoning behind that. It just is. Sometimes they don't get going, and then all of a sudden you'll wake up one day and you'll have 3 storms out there. So anyhow, big collective hello to everybody. Martha Gunter, you got your rain. I know you were looking for some, and you got some, and it wasn't out of hand. So I know you, and I saw you said that you were happy. Jason Barry, an earthquake in Ohio. Is that breaking news? Because while I'm doing this with you guys, I can't see what's going on. Lisa Nieves, I slipped Father's Day barbecuing for your dad. Awesome. So I think Sunday is going to be a very warm, humid day on Long Island, and hopefully thunderstorms will hold off until Sunday evening. I'm kind of optimistic that that's how it will play out. The chairman is back, Scott Briller, his mother making recovery little by little, and I know you guys have been talking about that. So we're glad to hear that there's progress there, and that is a good thing. And Charles Gall, yes, finally you're having a real spring season. These overrunning systems like this with the cool air temperatures in the 60s, wind coming in off the ocean, this spring has been probably the most normal spring that we've had in my neck of the woods, at least, over the last 5 or 6 years. We've had a lot of the time in the last 5 or 6 years where we've seen the winter get extended well into the month of April, and just sort of a short window before all of a sudden the 90-degree temperatures show up. Well, this spring seems to be just kind of behaving the way a spring is supposed to behave. Frank Toko 4. The cold front has now passed Erie, Pennsylvania. Moderate rain, no thunder. There's not a whole lot of thunderstorms with this. There are some, but and I wouldn't be shocked if we do see some lightning and hear some rumbles of thunder tonight. But the main emphasis, I think, is going to be on rain. It's not going to be on wind or hail or anything else, at least from what I can see. Excuse me. Again, it's the dust in here that's starting to get to me. I'm just reading through everybody's comments very, very quickly. And Mr. NASCAR down in North Belmore, 67 with dense fog. Yes, I did notice that there's a lot of fog that's come in. The visibility today was just really odd. Like as I described earlier in my drive in and seeing that wall of rain and the visibility go down so quickly. And when you looked at the the observations with respect to what came up before the chopper crash, the visibility collapsed from 2 miles to less than half a mile in a very, very short period of time. Patricia Owens, no other passengers on that chopper that crashed. The pilot did lose the pilot was killed in that crash. Scott Briller saying New York City averages 15 90-degree days a summer. I thought it's early. Do you think we'll have above or below? How's about this? Let's go average. Okay? Let's go for the average number. Are you sure that 15 is right, though? I'm just wondering. It sounds a little low. And that's a 30-year average. I would have thought it might have been up closer to 20. But and then there's at Central Park versus LaGuardia. I will tell you this. LaGuardia numbers, you should stay away from looking at LaGuardia numbers, if only because of the fact that they're doing, between all the traffic sprawl around there and all the construction that they're doing, that thermometer sometimes, depending on the wind direction, if it's a northeast wind, that LaGuardia thermometer is working fine. If there's any other wind, particularly a west wind, it could be 5 to 7 degrees higher than everybody else, and it'll just throw the most outrageous number. And I can remember back a couple of years ago in June where they went to 101, and I think no one else got any higher than 95 or 6. And so a lot of us called it into question because of the fact that they're doing all this construction and the traffic sprawl and the exhaust in that area is enormous. William Uber, very cold in the morning over the weekend, 49. Yeah, I know. It's nice. I slept with the window open. It felt so good. I'm one of these people that it can't be cold enough for me. I don't like to sleep in air conditioning unless I have to, but I do like, when it's cool, you get these really cool nights with the window open. In the wintertime, I keep my thermostat down near 62 because I like to I like to have a pile of blankets on top of me and just wake up in the morning sort of wrapped up like I'm in a cocoon. I sleep very, very deep, productive sleeps under those circumstances. So if you're I actually can't sleep with the heat on. When the heat comes up in the wintertime, when the heat comes up, say at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, it wakes me right up. Just the something about the heat, the warmer temperatures when they come into when I start breathing in that very dry, warm air, just wakes me right up. All right, we'll wrap it up here at this point. Yes, David, of course, is the answer to your question. Of course she complains. Of course they complain. But the trick is never show them how the thermostat works. Okay, and then you can have total control over the heat in your home. Pamela Lee, this spring has been the closest to normal we've had in a long time in your area. The growth is healthy and abundant. New wildlife is very abundant as well. I agree. It really has. So they did call the game. So basically, they waited to get the parking lot money from the Yankee-Met game. So they waited to get the parking lot money, and then they canceled it. Because if you park your car and they cancel the game, you don't get your parking money back. All right? So, conspiracy? I don't know. You got to ask them. All All right, got to go, folks. Thanks for being here tonight. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. We started that about 10 days or so ago. It seems to be working very well. A lot of you have said good things about it, and I've also gotten very good feedback from Facebook. In the morning, a quick video while you're having your coffee to get you up to date on what's going on weather-wise. So that's Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. You can find it here on YouTube, and you can also find it on Facebook. And they go up, by the way, on both platforms at roughly the same time. I load them up together. Usually it takes a little bit longer, by about a minute, to get it on the Facebook platform versus the YouTube. But they come up together, so it doesn't matter where you are. If you're not on Facebook, you don't have to. It'll be on YouTube. If you can't get to YouTube, it'll be on Facebook. And then tomorrow night we'll be back with our regular live stream, either 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Eastern Time, depending on what's going on with me schedule-wise. And, of course, regular website posts continue as always, and you can find those by going to meteorologistjoechaffee.com. Also, download my weather app from Google Play or from the App Store. It's available for all mobile devices. And you can get easy access to not only website posts, but also you could watch these live streams or or Weather in 5 or the Joe and Joe Weather Show. You can watch them right off the app, and the app is absolutely free. Patreon is my subscription platform. There's a link to it on the descriptor to this live stream or to the descriptor to this video if you're watching this on a replay. That's my subscription site of just $2 a month. Okay, it helps to support the app because the app has a minimal amount of ads running on it, and I would like to keep it that way. And I also don't want to go to a subscription subscription model. I like having a lot of people using it. So if you feel if you want to help along, you can join Patreon for that. But you will also get a ton of extra weather coverage, and you can message me at any time. So that is the link to that is patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee. And again, you can find that on the descriptor to this live stream, or if you're watching it on a replay, descriptor to this video. As always, as a reminder, the radar and satellite imagery here is dated. We're at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, June the 10th, so be sure to check your local conditions by going to your local National Weather Service forecast office, and you can access that by going to weather.gov. Not 100% sure if we're going to do a Joe and Joe weather show tonight. We'll see. If we do, figure about 9:20 Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.